Hey guys, and welcome to my channel. My name is Janetta if you are new here. And at the start of quarantine, I created a patio victory garden and I cannot wait to share it with you. I'm really excited for this video. It was so much fun to do and I hope this gives you some inspiration if you are wanting to do the same. Definitely subscribe if you are new here. I make videos every single week, and give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. It just helps me out so much. Ever since Quentin and I moved into this apartment, I've been wanting to do a patio garden, and I'm so excited to share with you the results and how everything turned out. The first thing I did was I did a little research on my garden zone. I live in Atlanta, so I'm in garden zone 7B, and then I need to figure out what vegetables I wanted to grow. So I knew I didn't want to be wasteful and grow things that I don't like radishes. So I made sure to do a little research on what I should grow, how long it should take, and how intensive everything is, if it needs to be in the ground or can it be put in a container. So everything I have is very container friendly, obviously, because I don't have in the ground space. And I was able to go to Home Depot right before lockdown so I could shop without putting a mask on. It was amazing. And I got all of the things that I needed. So at Home Depot or Lowe's, wherever you're getting your stuff, they usually have a big section for seeds. And at the back of the seeds, they tell you what container everything should be put in. That gave me a clue of what size I needed, or if I wanted to put multiple vegetables in one pot, if I needed to go up a size. For the pots, I decided to go with self-watering plastic ones because I didn't know what the heck I was doing. I didn't want to invest too much in pots that were really expensive, and I knew I had limited space, and I knew I wanted to grow a lot of different vegetables. So I just made sure to get these really cheap black ones because once I buy a house, I intend to have a raised bed garden anyways, and I can just use these for other things without having to spend too much money. These ended up working out really great because they have a removable reservoir. So if I felt like I had too much water, maybe because it rained, I can pull that out, let the plant dry out a little bit before watering again. I also made sure to pick up some potting soil because I am doing container gardening. You don't want to use garden soil. I picked up some fertilizer. I picked up 3 different types. A fish fertilizer, which was mainly for my indoor plants, but I ended up using a little bit on my seedlings. I also picked up Garden Tone, which is a good monthly fertilizer. It's a slow release fertilizer, and I also used that when I was planting my little seedlings. And then I got some garden lime for my cucumbers. Another thing that is a major key is a watering can, because I don't have access to a hose. That was just like the only logical thing to do, is to get a really big watering can, and I would say get one that is larger than what you would think, because the bigger the pot, the more water I felt like my plants took. So my cucumbers just were so thirsty, and this big watering can came in clutch. And lastly, a seed starting kit was so great because I was able to plant everything in one little container. It had a humidifying top, and I can just transplant it in and out. It also had a self-watering little bottom section, and it's reusable, so I can use this over and over and over again until it breaks. So next is the germination process, and the seed starting kit made this super easy. I'll leave everything linked down below because it was so helpful, and for beginners, I felt like this was the easiest step. It came with the soil already. All you had to do was wet it, and then you pop your seeds in. I put about 2 or 3 seeds per little square, and that was because I wanted to ensure that my seeds all germinated. And the more seeds you plant, the more likely the chance is that they germinated. I'm really glad I did this because not all of my seeds germinated for whatever reason. That just happens. Let me show you the things that I decided to grow. I just keep all my seeds in this little envelope. I grew a mixture of herbs and vegetables. So I grew some cucumbers. This is the Fairy Morse Garden Bush Slicer Hybrid. There's several different types of cucumbers, pickling and then slicing. So if you want to eat them, you want to get the slicing ones. I also have this Summer Hook summer squash, Ford Hook zucchini, Burpee's Black Beauty eggplant, and then garden beans. I also grew a lot of herbs. I love herbs, so I have some cilantro, which I grew inside, and I also grew outside to test it, but you can grow these outside. I grew some basil, which this grew exceptionally well. Parsley, this grew so well. And then I have two that didn't really grow that well for me. I have bunching onions and some oregano. These just didn't really take off for me, but I'll just try it again next year. When I first started my seedlings, I just had them on a table between a south and east facing window, but then I realized as they grew a little taller, they kind of were being a little leggy, so I did some research, and I'll leave his channel down below. It's called The Rusted Garden on YouTube. He has a ton of very detailed videos to get you started for beginners, but he said that you needed a clamp light or some type of growing system, and I was able to get a light bulb that had the amount of kelvins and lumens that closely matched sunlight. And once I bought that, I felt like my seedlings just grew so strong, because once I transplanted them outside, they just grew so well and they didn't die off. Also, while they were germinating, once they grew up a little bit taller, I gave them a little bit of super diluted fish fertilizer, and that just helps the green grow a lot because it has a lot of nitrogen. I use fish fertilizer for all of my indoor plants because they don't flower, so this just gives it a really good kickstart and makes everything super healthy. After they all grew according to their seed packets, it was time to transplant them outside, and here's where I just followed the back of the seed packets. They just tell you how big your containers should be and how many you can plant in each container. So once I was able to do that, I planted them all outside, and this was before Atlanta was super hot and humid, so it was really relaxing outside to just plant them all. And I had some music and I was just like getting it going. They all took off so well, and despite me following the directions in my zone, luckily for me, we had a full week of frost. Even though it was like 80 degrees in the morning, it was so cold at night, my poor babies. So if you have IKEA bags, they are amazing at protecting frost, at least for me on my patio. So I just made sure to cover everything with IKEA bags, some towels that I had, extra pots, just to make sure the frost didn't get any of my seedlings and none of them died. So I was really happy with that, but that was super scary at first because you never really know. I really think the success of the lights and then the fish fertilizer just made them all grow really well. And then this is a time where you kind of just like wait for things to grow. When you plant them, you're not gonna get plants in a quick amount of time. They all have like different growing times. So what I did was write everything down in kind of like a notebook of when I planted things, or marked it down in my calendar so I can know when things were ready. Sometimes you just don't know if you're growing things for the first time. So for my cucumbers, it takes like 53 days to harvest, whereas zucchini takes 57, eggplant takes 74, my beans took 55. So just make sure you're keeping all of your seed packets, even if you use all of them, because it's super helpful to know what seeds you have and all of the details. While they were growing, I did get attacked by fungus gnats. I don't know if it was the soil or because they were outside. They also came inside because before I bought a clamp light, I was taking my seedling trays inside and outside, and they were trying to attack my seedlings. So mosquito bits did a really great job of killing all of the fungus gnat larvae. I have a couple of them. They're not really in my pots. They're just like flying around, but that was super helpful. I also got some neem spray, which will help kill off like spider mites, any type of random bugs, and I would spray that on them probably once or twice a month as a preventative method. I always spray after it rained because it just will wash off, and all of my plants did really well. I do have a couple of issues with random things, but it's a garden, it's nature, it's going to happen, so you just have to make sure you're on top of it. So now it is growing time, and I just went out to check it all the time to make sure there was no bugs, to water every day, and just watching them grow was very satisfying. It was very therapeutic being out there and growing everything. It took a really long time before I got my first fruit, but I did, and I had like 3 cucumbers, I had 3 zucchinis. It was just so much fun being able to eat the things that you grew, and I filmed my reaction eating my first cucumber that I grew, and I was just like, oh my god. I have to say that cucumbers you grow and cucumbers from the grocery store, it might just be the cucumbers that I'm growing, but they have a distinct, like, different taste to it. I don't know what it is. It's not like it's a bad taste or anything. It's just very different. So I don't really know, but they were delicious. I still eat them to this day. They keep producing a bunch of cucumbers. So that was super successful, and I am really, really happy with all of the results. One thing I'm dealing with right now is powdery mildew on my zucchini. I know they're very susceptible to it, and I know that some people make seeds that are resistant to powdery mildew, like my cucumbers are. But I haven't had very many zucchinis out of it. I even like planted new ones. It might just be too hot and humid. So a few things that I learned during my little experiment that I think would be super helpful is to water often. These plants need so much water. I forgot to water literally a couple of hours after my normal watering time, and my cucumber just wilted. The cucumbers that I had on there shriveled up, and it was so sad. I had to cut them off because they didn't grow anymore. So make sure you're always watering, which is why I was so happy I got the reservoirs, because I just popped them back on. We had a lot of rain, and so I just assumed that they would be fine, but they still needed some water. So I made sure to put the self-watering reservoirs back on. They're doing really great. I still top them off with water when we have dry spells. And like I said with the watering, knowing when to water and when to not water. Over watering is just as bad as underwatering, because your plants won't be able to breathe from the roots, and that's the same for house plants. So you just want to make sure you're watering it adequately, and your plant will tell you when it's getting a little bit too much water, and it will tell you when it's not getting enough. Understanding lighting is so essential, because I am south-facing. I already knew that I was going to get really good light. However, if I was north-facing, it would have been a lot darker, and I don't know if my plants would be as abundant as they are now if I wasn't getting all-day sun. Another thing is to just treat your plant before you see bugs. More of a preventative method. I do that with my houseplants as well. I don't play when it comes to bugs, okay? Then the last tip that I have is just to trim and harvest often. So my cucumbers grew so much, but some of them grew really big and awkward shape, and I knew it took a lot of resources from growing my other cucumbers, because if I had a really big cucumber growing, the other ones didn't grow as fast, whereas when I plucked them off often, the next day they would be almost full size. Like they will grow from this to like full size overnight, because they have a lot of resource and access to the nutrients in the soil and the water and sunlight. So make sure you're plucking your cucumbers often so you can get a lot of harvest. I think that's what's helping me. Also, the basil, when it's hot outside, they want to literally like leave, okay? They will flower with the quickness. So I keep my basil trimmed so that way they don't have the opportunity to flower, and they just keep growing because they're like, oh, we need to flower. Like that's their kind of like goal in life, is to flower. So if you're continuing to trim them off, that way you can get more basil leaves and a less likely chance for it to flower. So that is it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much for taking the time with me today. Please subscribe if you are new here. And again, give this video a thumbs up if you did enjoy it. I hope to see you in a couple of days in a brand new video. Bye.